the situation, because the situation confronted by them and the realities confronted by them were now different, because in a colonial period and in the post-colonial period after 1960, particularly the problems were different, but now the problems has become so perverse. Most of the time, corruption, political bureaucrat nexus, nepotism, atrocities on women, the problems of downtrodden. These are the very important social issues nowadays, and these of 21st century. That's why the stuff that has shaped the mentality of these writers, 21st century writers, has shaped the mentality of Arvind Adiga too. So the career, life and career of Arvind Adiga's career. So Arvind Adiga, born on 23rd October 1974 in Madras, now we can call it Chennai, grew up in Mangalore, and he was educated in Canara High School there. After that, he migrated to Sydney, Australia, and then completed his graduate in Columbia University, New York. After that, he took a job as a financial journalist in India, and he was subsequently hired by Times Magazine, where he remained a South Asia correspondent for 3 years. Now, his career as a journalist gave him lots of opportunity, provided him lots of opportunity to understand his nation. He peeped into the life of common people. He interviewed lots of common people, rickshaw puller, downtrodden, and then tried to understand their problems, tried to understand their plight. And that's why he perceived what exactly the realistic situation of India quite well. And that's why this reality could become part of his literary writing. So Arvind Adiga's literary works are The White Tiger, which won a prestigious Man's Booker Award for his novel. Then he wrote novel Between the Assassinations, a very well composed novel reflecting the subaltern people whose journey starts from aspiration and ultimately ends on disillusionment. Then the next novel, Arvind Adiga's little short stories he has written, The Sultan Batteries in 2008, Smack in 2008, The Last Christmas in Bandra 2008, The Elephant in 2009, and The Last Man in Tower, the very important novel of Arvind Adiga. He wrote it in 2011, which focuses on the problems of urbanities, the difficulties of the people, and particularly the impact of globalization on the middle class people. Then let's come to the next chapter, that is socio-economic realism in Adiga's works. So first of all, let us see what exactly the socio-economic realism Adiga reflected in his first novel, that is The White Tiger, which was a very famous novel of Arvind Adiga. This novel has been praised by lots of critics, and he was also criticized for this novel that he has sold nakedness of India on Western ramp for the award. Lots of allegations has been leveled on Adiga for that. But it is very important for us to know what exactly the reality Arvind Adiga tries to express through this novel. So in these novels, reflection of startling contrast between India's rise as a global economy and plight of marginalized class of the society. When we look at Indian economy, when we look at this modern age, we think that yes, India is progressing, there is lots of changes occur in India and all these things. We can see the development of IT sector and other development industries and all such things. But at the same time, Adiga has divided India into two India, that is India of light and India of darkness. India of light is for those people who are rich, who are of upper class and who have everything. And India of dark is represented by those people who are marginalized people, who are discriminated workers, those who are living a really very pathetic life. The picture of these people, their struggle for existence, have been delineated realistically by Arvind Adiga in this novel. Probably his travel in the society, his interviews with those peoples help him to delineate his characters, particularly the character of Balram Halwai, who is a protagonist of The White Tiger, represents a dweller of India of darkness. It is his struggle to come out of India of darkness and to enter into the India of light is very realistically delineated by Adiga in his first novel, The White Tiger. So the delineation of problems faced by the poor in rural and urban area is also the subject of this novel, and it has also described realistically. The problem faced by the poor in the rural area is very difficult. They face lots of problems there, and particularly the family of Balram Halwai was a very marginalized family. Because of lack of wealth, lack of money, they forced Balram to leave his education and forced him to work at a tea stall to meet both ends possible for the family. He was forced to work as a driver in the landlord's house, where he experienced such a humiliating situation, such a problem that the rich people give to the poor, where he very sarcastically he explained his condition, where he, while working at landlord's house, he experienced that the dogs of landlords have been given honorable position in that house, because a servant says to Balram that the worth of these dogs is more than the worth of you. And that's why Balram realized his condition, that poor in rural areas are really living a very undignified life, and they are really struggling very hard for the existence. The metaphor of rooster coop is a very important metaphor and a very realistic metaphor used by Arvind Adiga to describe the condition of subalterns in India. The rooster coop metaphor, we need to understand this rooster coop metaphor, where Adiga once experienced in Delhi rooster that were tightly packed in a cage at a butcher shop, where all these roosters were waiting for their turn to be slain by the butcher. But these roosters never tried to come out of that. They submitted themselves, they surrendered themselves to their fate. Arvinda Adiga describes in this novel that this is the condition of subaltern in India, that the tolerance, the sense of tolerance is so deeply rooted in our psyche that we never try to rebel against the injustice perpetrated by the upper classes, perpetrated by the masters, perpetrated by these industrialist, corrupt peoples. Okay, so we have submitted ourselves to our faith, and that it is probably because of we are so much excessively tolerant. Excessive tolerance is there in our psyche. But the great reformers like Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar taught us to unite for our rights, but it is legally, but with law. We should not take law at our hand. But here Balram, the protagonist of The White Tiger, took law into his hands, and he murdered his master to realize his dreams. It cannot be justified. Definitely it cannot be justified, but it can be taken as a warning that we continue to smother the voices of these illiterate voices of this proletariat class. One day they will left no another alternative than taking this law into their hand. So that's why Arvind Adiga has described the reality, the stage, in the form of warning, to make us aware about the situation of the subalterns. Superstition is also another part that is reflected in this novel, The White Tiger. Our orthodox mentality never allow us to come out of the superstitions. Though superstition is deep rooted in our psyche, though we are educated, but still we follow these superstitions, we follow these practices in our life. The one of the example of superstitions he has given, which is really very apt, we can relate to it. He described the condition of the rivers in India, particularly river Ganga, which is considered as a holy river, and in Hindu mythology, it is been treated as our mother. But we Indians never care for its purity, or we make it polluted. And Balram says that though we consider this river pure, this river as holy, but we shamelessly polluted our rivers. But in foreign countries, these rivers have not been considered holy, have not been treated as a mother, but still the foreign people, foreigners consider it their moral duty, national duty to maintain the purity, to maintain the chastity of their rivers. That is a part of superstition. He says that superstitious practices should be discarded in order to think about a great change, great revolution, and development in the nation. Child labor is another problem that I have already mentioned, that the Balram, the protagonist of the White Tiger, has been forced by his family to work because the family does not have another source of income. That's why the poor families force their children to work, and because of it, they cannot complete their education and they remain uneducated throughout their life. This severe problem is also highlighted in this novel. Then the next Arvind Adiga's novel, that is Between the Assassinations. Here, the protagonists have been delineated in a different way, and different social issues have been raised by Arvind Adiga. The first issue is the religious fanaticism, which is a very dangerous issue. Poised to eat into the vitals of the nation. The first incident here, that is the Ziauddin, a little Muslim boy, a 12-year Muslim boy, compelled to work in a tea stall or come to Kittur in search of a job where nobody gives him a job because he is a Muslim and the area is a mostly Hindu populated area and no one ready to give him job. But Ramanna Shetty allowed him to work in his tea stall. But in a very short time, he was accused for stealing money, and that's why he was expelled from the job. But the inhuman treatment given to that boy creates a sense of alienation in his mind, and he thought that all these wrong allegations have been leveled against him. It is probably because he is Muslim, and this sense of alienation creates religious fanaticism in the minds of such childs, and obviously these childs can then be treated, and this can be expressed in a perverted manner. A Pathan who came to the Kittur used the hatred that arise in the mind of the boy for terrorism. He was actually a terrorist, and he tried to use this boy in his activity of terrorism. This boy doesn't know anything that he is being used by the Pathan for the terrorist activity, but that Pathan instigate this boy against the Hindu, telling that the Hindus are perpetrating injustice with the Muslims. So this type of religious fanaticism and the severity of this problem has been very realistically delineated by Arvind Adiga in Between the Assassinations. Secondly, the child labor is also another problem which was represented in this novel, Between the Assassinations. The 12-year-old boy has to work for his family. He has to work in the summer in the fields, and because of that, his childhood is completely perished. and that is the reality of our India. It is also very realistically highlighted by Arvind Adiga in this novel. Rampant bureaucratic corruption is also a very severe problem. Bureaucratic corruption is disturbing the social fabric of India. Abbasi, a God-fearing Muslim businessman, wants to reopen his factory, but he feels miserable, he feels helpless because of the bureaucratic corruption. To reopen factory means to grease the palms of lots of officers, government officers there. To get permissions from them, he has to grease the palms. Okay, he feels the prick of his conscience, but he is helpless. He can't do anything. Okay, in order to open the factory, anyway, he has to grease the palms of the officers, and that is the condition of the entrepreneur in our nation. Government asks youth to be entrepreneur in order to create a new India, but the real problem is that these youths have to face terrible problem to start their business, to get loan. So they have to face this bureaucratic corruption. That is a rampant bureaucratic corruption. This is a severe problem that is highlighted very realistically in this novel, Between the Assassination by Arvind Adiga. Casteism is another problem. Though casteism is banned by law, there is a strict law on it, but still it has ingrained in our psyche that it expresses through our behavior. So in Xerox or Ramakrishna, a character delineated, portrayed by Arvind Adiga, through it, this problem is highlighted. Xerox was a different type of character who struggle very hard to make his identity. Actually, his fathers belonged to a lower caste who took scrap from the landlord's house to for income, and this was undignified job actually. And Xerox does not want to live the life his father had lived, and that's why he start a new business. The business was that to sell Xerox copies of books at a market street. He thought that he thinks that it is a very dignified job because he is spreading knowledge to all others. But unknowingly, one day he starts selling the copies of Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. Actually, this is the banned book in India. He actually doesn't know the fact, and that's why he was arrested by the police. In police station, police understand this fact. Definitely he has made crime or unknowingly, but police should try to understand it. But because he was Dalit, because he was the member of down caste, the police beat him severely. That creates a sense of alienation in the mind of Xerox. But he was made of different stuff. He continued to be the bookseller, though he was beaten terribly by the policeman. So this problem is highlighted in Arvind Adiga's Between the Assassination, which is a very realistic problem that in most of the Indian society we can come across. Demoralization in young generation. Actually, young generations is a power of nation. They are a future of nation. Their characters should be strong. Vivekananda says that youth can be the architect of the nation, but unfortunately, the demoralization in young generation creates a severe problem, thwarting the future of India. Arvind Adiga describes that demoralization in his stories, where he says that this young generation is prone to the pornographic films, some vulgar languages, some detrimental some type of films and some other sources available for them. And all these sources is corrupting their mind, so that these young generation is indulging in all these types of problems, and which leads to the increasing criminal ratios in our India. This also creates a problem of atrocities on women, and these severe problems have been very realistically delineated by Adiga in his Between the Assassination. Dereliction of duty by media is also a very striking and very, very serious problem, because media is considered as a fourth state of or fourth column of democracy. They should serve as a watchdog, and they should not, but instead of serving as a watchdog, they became a dog that bark at behest of their master. Now that's why Arvind Adiga criticized media through the story of Gurudas Kamath, a true journalist who wants to bring the truth clearly, because he thinks that journalism is to make people aware about the reality of the society. So that's why, but unfortunately, in the newspaper he's working, the Dawn Herald newspaper, the owner of that newspaper expelled him because he wants to, Gurudas Kamath wants to explain, wants to present the reality of the society through the paper with the spirit of true journalism. But unfortunately, this is the condition. We can see we have enormous examples. So Gauri Lankesh had been murdered. He was a true journalist. And there are some ratios. I have mentioned that ratio in my novel, that since 1992, 70 journalists have lost their lives. 46 journalists killed while working were covering political issues, and 35 were covering corruption. So this has become really terribly severe issue, social issues that has been dealt by Arvind Adiga in this novel. Exploitation of workers at construction sites and its impact on their family life. This is also a serious problem. They are migrated workers, and their lives can be compared with the life with animals, because they do not have any dignified lives. They do not have any respect. The landlord, the contractors, the owners treat them as if they are animal, and they consistently work from day to night for the living. It put terrible impact on their family, particularly their children. They remain uneducated, and addiction in this construction worker is a common sight in India. Particularly, they have lots of alcoholism, and then eating smack is also a addiction in these construction workers. And it becomes more severe when these construction workers compel their children to beg for fulfilling their addiction. So this terrible problem has been delineated by Arvind Adiga by the story of Soumya, a little girl who compelled to beg to fulfill the addiction of his father, who fear him to beat if she refused to refuse for begging. So that is also described severely in this novel. Class discrimination is upper class is also a terrible problem. Class discrimination in upper class means that in a upper class also, the people are judged by the money they have. It is a story of a Jayamma who belongs to the upper class, but who could not, his father doesn't have any money for to marry, because the family, there are 11 children in his family, and her number is 9th. He could manage to marry 6 girls or his daughters, but unfortunately he now doesn't have money, and he could not marry Jayamma, and that's why Jayamma is now compelled to work at some advocate's house where he was treated very unjustly. The advocates asked her to live with the Shaila, the other servant in the house who belongs to the lower caste. But even in that situation, the sense of casteism is there in the mind of Jayamma also, though her condition is equal to the condition of the Shaila. But she refused to live. She refused to share the room with Shaila because she was the member of lower caste. So this problem is also highlighted realistically by Adiga in his novels. Poverty as a stumbling block, preventing the poor from realizing their hopes and dreams, is also a severe problem. That these poor try to serve rich people, so that they think that by serving them, they would get some dignified life, they would get some respect. But this is not true. We have seen most of our youth and some people serving serving politicians or serving the upper class people or rich people only to make their identity, hoping that they will get respect. But through the story of Mrs. Gomes and George, he clearly mentioned that George, however, tried to please Mrs. Gomes, a rich woman in the town, but unfortunately, these rich people never have a compassionate attitude for the poor. They just only use them and then throw, after using, they throw these poor people. So this is the reality of the society, is very realistically delineated, presented by Adiga in this story. A problem of dowry is also a severe problem in our society. Ratnakar Shetty, a Quaker, actually, he is not pleased with the profession he has selected. Quackery means to defooling people. So he sells white pills. For what? To white pills to as a remedy for the youths who are suffering from venereal diseases. Okay, so this is also another aspect that the young generation are demoralizing. They went for they most of the time succumb to problems of prostitution, and because of this, the venereal diseases, most of them suffer venereal diseases, and for that, since they don't have money to cure by showing it to the medical practitioners, they take recourse or to such quackers, and this quack take advantage of their helplessness. So the Ratnakar Shetty sell these pills. He was actually not interested in selling, but the circumstances and his condition compelled him to do so. And because he has 3 marriageable daughters at home, and the expenses and the rising index cannot allow him to meet the ends, and that's why he took that type of decisions. So dowry system, though it is banned by the law, but still the society has given it a different name. Now it has become a prestige issue in our society that is also very effectively delineated, effectively presented by Adiga in this novel. The environmental concern is also another issue. So through the story of Gangadhar Rao, Adiga expresses his environmental concern that though people are deforesting in order to build buildings, in order to build more malls, but what they are doing, this is a pertinent question Adiga wants to ask. We are make our earth barren, but in other way, we are making our life also barren, because this nature, these trees keeps gives us oxygen, but at the same time, we can feel soothing effect. We can feel peace of mind in the when we are in nature. So these environmental concerns are also described. Environmental concerns are also expressed through this novel. Irresponsible behavior of children towards their parent is also a very crucial issue, which is also given representation in this work, that children nowadays feel that parents are the burden on their shoulder and they are not ready to give support to their parents. So this problem is also reflected through this novel. Farmer suicide is also a very important national issue dealt in the last story and last episode of this novel, where a family of the farmer who committed suicide, and their condition has been realistically described, has been delineated, that why this farmer has to commit suicide. It is because he has 2 marriageable daughters, and due to crop failure, he could not manage the expenses of his daughter's marriage, and that's why ultimately he took loans from a money lender, and he actually could not repay that loan, and he had to commit suicide. But its impact his family, his wife and his another daughter severely. That is the realistic delineation in this novel. Then the socio-economic realism in the last man in tower that we consider is that is the shifting of individual identity to communal identity. Shifting of individual identity to communal identity is a problem in urban areas where the benefits are given to the community. Individual rights, whether they are according to law, whether they are constitutional, but if community is there, then we'll have to take decision according to the community, and individual has to surrender his rights in the benefit of the community. It is the problem created by globalization, particularly in the metropolitan cities. These problems have to faced by the people terribly. Evils of urbanizations are there, another problem. Okay, the people are start migrating from the rural areas to urban areas in order to get job because of the negligence of creating jobs at rural area. These people consistently stay on migrating to the urban areas, and that is why it creates lots of disturbances in urbanities. The lots of problems are there, sewage problems, and then the problems of place, residential problems, and these problems have been very realistically delineated in this novel also. And the effect of globalization on urbanities, it means to say that the desires increased after globalization. Though we have limited resources at our disposal, but still we have lots of aspirations, lots of desires to fulfill, but we do not have that resources. And that's why some people took some unlawful measures to fulfill their aspirations, and which rises criminalization in urban areas. That is the problem very effectively delineated by Adiga in this novel. Impact of consumerism and materialism on human values. Human values that are ingrained in our Indian society, that is our culture. But in the race, in the competition of wealth, materialism, and due to money madness, people has lost interest in the human values. They are now more and more devoted for earning money at all cost. They ignore human values. Lack of family values are also ignored there. People are mad before money, and they can go at any level. We have seen that the issues of properties and all this is the output, and this is the outcome of lack of family values that has also been very effectively delineated.
Come to the major findings of your research. Okay. Just state in the major findings of your research instead of elaborating each and every point. Okay. A researcher should we know all those things. Okay, you just need to summarize whatever the major findings of your research instead of elaborating each and every point.
Okay, sir. So in chapter 3, political realism.
Sir, still you are talking about for last 50 minutes, second chapter and third chapter. Presentation, last PhD Viva should be majorly focus about aims and objectives, research methodology, chapter in brief, and major findings. Okay, instead of talking about each chapter, their problems and issues, we know all those things. It's like more or less like looks like a lecture. Okay, or it's so I request you to come to the major findings of your research instead of talking about every point. What is the outcome of your thesis? Just talk about that one.
Okay, sir. So the point is that after going through the description of the realism expressed by Adiga in his works, we can see that the realistic picture of India is quite contrasting to the image, Shining India image. So what is Shining India image? The Shining India image is an image created by politicians in order to glorify the nation. But while doing so, it is important that basic premise of our argument should be sound. And that's why Arvind Adiga very contrastically delineated the realism in India, which tears the mask from the face of this society of being shining society. So Shining India image is dramatically opposite here to the Adiga's delineation of India in his words. Accusation on India of presenting derogatory image of India on a Western ramp. So this is the accusation, and the answer of this accusation is that the Adiga is a very faithful writer. Whatever he observes, he has delineated in his works, and it was very realistically delineated, because in our day-to-day life we have come across these incidents. India, when we try to think about India, India has certainly come a long way from what it was, but this is not a complete picture. This is just a small part of the real picture of nation taken as a whole. And that's why a country prospers and shines only when the individual, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, or economic condition, gets an equal opportunity to prove his or her talents. And here, the major findings of my research is that Adiga's works very vividly delineate the realistic and revolutionary repercussion of centralized politics, political, economic, physical, religious, and ideological power that divides people into oppressor and oppressed, rich and poor, have and have-nots. Adiga is a novelist who has deep understanding of man's innate desires and capabilities. So this is also we come across after studying his novels. Adiga vehemently suggests the drastic need of fighting against the inimical forces collectively in his characteristic manner of hitting the nail on the head. Adiga believes in confession because the process of improvement starts with introspection. Unless we introspect, we cannot start or initiate the process of improvement that is also described in his works. Adiga makes a point that no country can prosper relying on its glorious past. We need to focus on reality. We need to focus on present in order to make us future glorious. So that's why the Shining India image Shining India image is Adiga's India of light wide apart from the India of dark. Though Arvind Adiga's works begins on the note of despair and end on the note of warning, they awaken people rather than discourage. All these are the findings of this thesis, and that's why whatever Adiga presented through the artistically presented is the reality in the society. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Now, the Viva is open for the questions from all the research scholars. I request all the respected professors and research scholars to ask their questions to Mr. Viva Patil, sir. Is there any question? Okay, so now I turn to Honorable External Referee, Mr. Prashant Mothi, sir. Sir, please ask your questions and proceed with. Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
You may ask your questions.
Yes, yes. First, I need to appreciate all the presenter. Principal Dr. Shobha Rokre, ma'am. Research guide, my friend and newly appointed US Chairman, Dr. Nilesh Tare, sir. PhD Research Center Coordinator, Dr. Kashinath Baradi, sir. Dean also joined, I think, Monatai, ma'am. And At the outset, I need to congratulate Vaibhav Patil for his outstanding presentation on his topic, socio-economic and political realism in the works of Arvind Adiga. When I've gone through the thesis, I appreciate the research done by Vaibhav Patil and his deep and thought-provoking research address. The actually the chapter has been the thesis has been divided into 5 chapters, and it leads start with from the introduction to conclusion, and the division is quite simple considering the aspect of the study. The first chapter, introductory chapter, with talks about the various aspects related to the study, and it has also included aims and objectives, methodology, hypothesis of the and significance of the research study. The second chapter, as he has elaborately talked about socio-economical realism in Adiga's work, throws light on the prevailing socio-economical condition of the society through the marginalized protagonists like Balram in the White Tiger. But he talks in detail about Last Man in Tower, as well as between the assassination and all those things. The third chapter, entitled Political Realism in Adiga's work, talks about how the political system has been deliberately changed by the political parties to suit their purpose in Indian people. And he has also pointed out the new classical elements. The fourth chapter, Shining India Image perspective, attempts to show that through India has come a long way, that he has talked, but still we need to grow through the works of Arvind Adiga, who is a Booker Prize winning writer. The fourth chapter, the fifth chapter actually talks about the summarization of the previous chapters. The findings are quite outstanding. Whatever the research scholar has done, it has highlighted that the process of improvement start with the introspection of each and everyone from India, and it is also true that a person as well as the society of a nation grows. So here I would like to raise certain questions to the research scholar. My first question to a research scholar is that, what prompted you to choose first this author, Arvind Adiga, and of course, you have chosen Arvind Adiga's work for your research. So who prompted you to choose out of all those Booker Prize winning writer like Arundhati Roy is there, Salman Rushdie is also there, right? So what prompted you to choose this Booker Prize winning writer?
Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to answer your questions, first of all. Sir, when I go through the interview of Arvind Adiga, I came to realize that as a true journalist, he went everywhere in India. He covered all problems, not only cover all problems, but actually interview these people and then try to understand their problems, and then very realistically study their problems, and then try to create the images and try to create these characters, and try to incorporate all those reality of the society in his studies. And that's why Arvind Adiga's this attitude, straightforwardness, and particularly Arvind Adiga is a writer who is just like, I think, just like the doctor who without any hesitation tells the people what exactly the problem is, without feeling of their sensation, without feelings of their feelings. And this straightforward attitude I appreciate very much, and that's why I select Arvind Adiga for my research work.
Okay. You know that there are a lot of metaphors used in Arvind Adiga's work. So there is a famous metaphor like the rooster crow. What is the significance of this metaphor used in the white tiger?
So this metaphor rooster coop is very effectively used by Adiga, and it represents the particularly the subaltern psyche, that the tolerance is very ingrained in our people. They are so much tolerant for their injustice, and that's why this rooster coop has been used to represent this excessive tolerance of subalterns. They never try to come out of their difficult situation. They never try to unite it to come, and particularly they held responsible their faith, particularly for this devastating situation. They also held responsible for it their past karmas, particularly the karmas of their previous life. So these types of attitudes of Indian is a very artistically represented by using the metaphor of rooster coop in Arvind Adiga's White Tiger.
Okay. You know that in the work of Arvind Adiga, he always divide two societies. Okay. Society into two parts. So what are the major rural and urban society problems highlighted by Arvind Adiga in his work?
In every novel of Arvind Adiga tried to differentiate the problems of rural area and problems of the urban areas. Particularly in White Tiger, he delineates the problems are facing by the rural people, that they don't have work at their hands, the agriculture difficulties, crop failure. These problems are commonly faced by the rural people, and that's why these problems compel them to migrate towards the urban areas in search of jobs, and that creates difficulties in urban areas, and that difficulties become more and more severe in the age of globalization. New challenges are there before our society in urban areas and in rural areas also. So that are the major problems that is very artistically and very realistically delineated by Adiga in his works.
Okay, good. So my last question to you is that what is the social relevance of your study, and what is the scope for further researcher? Because every research is not the end. We keep on talking about Arvind Adiga, or we keep on studying this author from different perspectives. So what is the scope for further research, and what is the social relevance of your study?
Sir, Arvind Adiga's works are based on a substrata of Indian realities. So these Indian realities, with the advent of globalization, is abruptly changing, consistently changing. These are the current era problem that is Arvind Adiga dealt with. But this problem go on consistently changing, and that's why to understand these problems, Arvind Adiga depicted this problem not to derogate or not to make India's image wrong on the Western RAM, but he sincerely represented these problems in order to make positive changes in the society. And that's why my scope will reveal, my research will reveal the scope for the further research, further writer or researcher. That's you should focus on the problems of the society, because creative writers focus on changing society to make reforms in the society. And that's why this research, my research, will definitely be the guiding star for all upcoming researchers to deal with the social research in order to bring positive and in the society.
Okay. So overall, the researcher is promising in his scholarship and arguments because he is analytical, insightful, and quite innovative in his work. I appreciate the sincere work carried out by the research scholar under the able guidance of the chairman of the BOS and my very good friend and his supervisor, Dr. Nilesh Tare sir, has made him to think with precision and clarity. The only suggestion to the center is that now onwards, because every research scholars needs to present his final Viva OC with proper manner. He has presented it, but with PPT, PowerPoint presentation, he should or she should present his final Viva OC. So overall, the thesis is well written and neatly typed. The arguments are precise, clear, and cogent. The style is appropriate to the research work. So I therefore recommend that the thesis of Mr. Vaibhav Patil be accepted for the award of PhD degree of Sant Gadge Baba Amravati University, Amravati.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable guidance and cooperation. Now I request the chairperson of this meeting and honorable principal of our college, Dr. Shobha Rupde madam, to give her presidential speech.
सगळ्यांना नमस्कार. संत गाडगे बाबा अमरावती विद्यापीठांतर्गत आपल्या स्वर्गीय CM कढी कला महाविद्यालयाच्या संशोधन केंद्रातील विद्यार्थी इंग्रजी विषयाचे श्री वैभव पाटील यांचा ओपन डिफेन्स व्हायवा आज या ठिकाणी सादर त्यांनी केलेला आहे आणि सगळ्या प्रश्नांना त्यांनी यथोचित उत्तर दिलेले आहेत. सर्वप्रथम मी त्यांचं अभिनंदन करते आणि आज ह्या अतिशय महत्त्वाच्या विषयाला धरून जो डिफेन्स या ठिकाणी झालेला आहे त्याला उपस्थित असलेल्या मानव विद्या शाखेच्या डीन माननीय डॉक्टर मोना चिमोटे मॅडम आणि बहिस्थ परीक्षक म्हणून या ठिकाणी जे उपस्थित झाले आणि त्यांनी अतिशय बारकाईने ह्या संशोधनाच्या विषयाला हात घातला ते माननीय डॉक्टर प्रशांत मोथे सर, वैभव पाटील यांना सातत्याने मार्गदर्शन ज्यांनी केलं आणि आज त्याची आपल्याला फलश्रुती पाहावयास मिळत आहेत असे अत्यंत सजग वृत्तीचे मार्गदर्शक डॉक्टर निलेश तारे सर, या ठिकाणी उपस्थित असलेले संशोधन केंद्राचे समन्वयक डॉक्टर काशीनाथ बराठे सर, त्याचबरोबर सर्व उपस्थित संशोधक, विद्यार्थी आणि महाविद्यालयातील प्राध्यापक वर्ग आणि उपस्थित सर्व मित्रांनो, खरं तर मला आज अतिशय आनंद झालाय. माझा विषय मराठी आहे पण इंग्रजी विषयाचं मी आता जे सगळा संवाद ऐकला आणि सर्व डिफेन्स या ठिकाणी मी ऐकला तर मला इंग्रजी खूप येत नाही पण मला जे कळलं आहे तर त्या एका थोड्याशा जाणीवेतून मला असं वाटतं की आज जो विषय या ठिकाणी संशोधकांनी निवडलेला होता अरविंद अडिगा यांच्या साहित्यामधील सामाजिक, आर्थिक, राजकीय वास्तववाद, अतिशय महत्वाचा विषय मला हा वाटतो. कारण की आपलं संशोधन जे असतं ते संशोधन हे समाजोपयोगी असलं पाहिजे. आपलं संशोधन हे संशोधकांना मार्गदर्शक असलं पाहिजे तरच त्या संशोधनाचा उपयोग आहे. केवळ आपल्या नावासमोर आचार्य पदवी लागावी यासाठी केलेलं जे संशोधन असतं आणि ते थातूर मातूर असतं त्यामुळे समाजाचा, विद्यापीठाचा, संशोधन क्षेत्रातील कोणत्याही अभ्यासकाचा काही फायदा होत नाही. म्हणून ते संशोधन कुचकामी असतं असं मला कायम वाटत आलेलं आहे. आज जेव्हा मी हा सगळी चर्चा ऐकली आणि त्यांच्या आचार्य पदवीच्या प्रबंधामध्ये त्यांनी काय मांडणी केलेली आहे आणि अतिशय मोठा लेखक अरविंद अडिगा यांच्या एकूणच साहित्यामध्ये जे प्रश्न आलेले आहेत, सामाजिक, साहित्यिक, त्याचबरोबर त्यांच्या सामाजिक प्रश्नाला जोडून आलेलं जे एक क्षेत्र असतं आर्थिक आणि राजकीय, याचा विस्ताराने आढावा आणि मांडणी आपण केलेली आहे. सर, दोन महत्वाचे संवेदनशील प्रश्न माझ्याशी संबंधित यात होते. एक होतं बाल कल्याण, बालमजूर जे अनाथ निराधार बालक असतात त्याबद्दलचे प्रश्न आणि शेतकऱ्यांचे प्रश्न. हे दोन्ही प्रश्न ह्या लेखकाच्या साहित्यामध्ये आवर्जून आलेले आहेत आणि सामाजिक दृष्टिकोन लेखकाने कसा बाळगावा आणि समाज उत्थानाच्या कार्यामध्ये आपल्या लेखणीचं योगदान कसं द्यावं यासाठीचा प्रयत्न या लेखकाने कसा केला आहे हे आपण अत्यंत परिश्रमपूर्वक या ठिकाणी नोंदवलेला आहे. आपल्या ह्या प्रबंधाचा जो उपयोग आहे तो समाजाच्या सबंध विकास गतीला नेहमीच प्रेरक असा ठरणारा आहे आणि त्यात आलेले जे प्रश्न आहेत ग्रामीण भागातले, शहरी भागातले, ते आपण या ठिकाणी चर्चेला घेतले. आपल्या मांडणीमध्ये त्याचे अनेक पैलू आपण विशद केले आणि अतिशय चांगल्या पद्धतीने हा प्रबंध अगदी परिश्रमपूर्वक आपण निर्माण केला आणि समाजाला, संशोधकाला सुद्धा एक दिशा मिळण्यासाठी या संबंध आपल्या संशोधनाचं काम फार मोठं आहे असं मी मानते. माननीय या ठिकाणी डॉक्टर प्रशांत मोथे सर यांनी सुद्धा या विषयाला खूप अप्रिशिएट केलेला आहे. त्यांनी सुद्धा सांगितलं की समाज आणि साहित्य याचा जो अनुबंध असतो तो केवळ आपल्या पदवीपुरता नसतो, तर त्यातून समाजाचं उत्थान होणं गरजेचं असतं आणि तो हेतू संशोधकांनी पूर्ण केला आहे. याबद्दल त्यांनी समाधान व्यक्त केलं. अत्यंत मनापासून त्यांनी ह्या प्रस्तावाचं अतिशय अभ्यास केला आणि त्यातून त्यांनी जे प्रश्न निर्माण केले आणि एक चांगलं मार्गदर्शन आमच्या सर्व विद्यार्थ्यांना केलं, त्याबद्दल मी त्यांचे या ठिकाणी मनापासून खरंच आभार मानते, अभिनंदन करते की एक चांगले परीक्षक आपण आम्हाला लाभलेले आहात. पुनश्च आपण सर्वांनी या व्हायवामध्ये सहभाग घेतला. डॉक्टर निलेश तारे सर यांचे परिश्रम यामागे आहेतच, त्यांचेही अभिनंदन करते आणि सरांनी आपल्या संशोधनाला या ठिकाणी हिरवी झेंडी दाखवलेली आहे. त्यामुळे मी श्री वैभव पाटील यांची अभिनंदन करते आणि माझे 2 शब्द संपवते. धन्यवाद.
थँक्यू मॅडम. थँक्यू.
Okay, thank you very much, madam. Now I turn to the concluding part of this meeting. That is, I am going to propose vote of thanks. I am thankful to Dr. Shubha Rupte madam, the chairperson of this meeting and principal of our college, for sparing her valuable time for the Viva from her busy schedule. I am thankful to external referee and my intimate friend, Dr. Prashant Muthe sir, for his valuable presence and his support and cooperation and valuable guidance to my research student. I am thankful to Honorable Dr. Mona Chimote madam for her valuable presence. I am grateful to Dr. Mangesh Odgukar sir for his valuable presence and cooperation. I am grateful to Dr. Bharate sir for taking efforts to make this meeting a grand success. He took great efforts from 2 days to make this meeting a successful one. Lastly, I am very thankful to all the research scholars who joined the Viva and spare their valuable time with us. I am also thankful to my research scholar for nicely presenting his research work before all of us. Now, thank you all, and with the kind permission of our chairperson, I declare that the meeting is over. Thank you very much.
ओके.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
अभिनंदन सर.
थँक्यू व्हेरी मच मॅडम. थँक्यू.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations, sir.
थँक्यू व्हेरी मच.
Sir, congratulations, sir.
Congratulations आपको.
अरे, thank you. Thank you.
हाँ, डॉक्टर प्रशांत मोते सर.
हाँ, sir.
हॅलो. हॅलो. मोते सर आहेत, मोते सर. मला वाटते झाले. ओके. चला, पुन्हा एकदा आचार्य पदवी संशोधन केंद्राच्या वतीने आपल्या सर्वांचे या ठिकाणी आभार व्यक्त करतो आणि माननीय अध्यक्षांच्या वतीने ही सभा